She texted, "I sold your camera stuff to cover my credit card bill. You never use it anyway." It was $38,000 worth of professional equipment I use for my business. I replied, "Which buyer?" Then I got it back, filed a police report for theft, and pressed charges. Original post. I, 31 male, am a freelance commercial photographer. I've been doing this full-time for about 6 years now. Before anyone pictures some guy with a Canon Rebel snapping senior portraits of the park. No, I shoot product campaigns, corporate headshots for firms, and the occasional small-budget ad work. It took me years to build up the client base, and even longer to build up the gear. My main kit, the stuff that actually makes me money, was worth roughly $38,000 at the time of this story. 2 professional camera bodies, 5 lenses including a 70 to 200 mm f/2.8 that alone cost $2,500, studio lighting rigs, modifiers, triggers, a set of high-end memory cards, and a calibrated monitor I use for editing. All of it stored in 3 Pelican cases in the closet of the second bedroom I used as my office/editing room. I'm telling you the dollar amount because it matters. A lot. My girlfriend and I had been together for about a year and a half. She moved into my apartment around month 9. The apartment was mine, my name on the lease, my furniture, my deposit. She contributed $600 per month toward rent, which was fair since total rent was $1,450, and she was effectively moving into my already furnished place. She worked in retail management at a department store. Made decent money, somewhere around $44,000. But she had a spending problem that I didn't fully understand until she was already living with me. Designer bags, Sephora hauls that looked like she was supplying a small country, subscription boxes for things I didn't even know had subscription boxes. Candles, apparently, have subscription boxes. Multiple ones. I noticed the credit card thing early on. She had 3 cards, and she rotated payments between them like some kind of sad financial juggling act. I brought it up once, gently, suggesting maybe a budget spreadsheet or one of those debt payoff apps. She told me her finances were her business and that she didn't need a lecture. I dropped it. Her money, her problem. That was my philosophy. That philosophy worked great right up until it became my problem. So about 2 months ago, I left for a 4-day shoot. Corporate client, out of state, decent contract. I packed my travel kit, 1 body, 2 lenses, portable lighting, and left the rest of my gear at home in the Pelican cases like I always did. Day 2 of the shoot, I get a text from her. Casual as anything. Like she was telling me she'd picked up milk. "Hey, so don't be mad, but I sold some of your camera stuff to cover my Amex bill. You never use half of it anyway, and it was just sitting there. I got a good price. We can talk about it when you get home." I stared at that text for probably 3 full minutes. Just stared. My second shooter noticed and asked if I was okay. I told him I needed 5 minutes. I went to the hotel bathroom and called her. She picked up on the second ring, all breezy. "Babe, I knew you'd overreact." I asked her what exactly she sold. She said the big cases of stuff in the closet. I asked her to be specific. She said she didn't know what everything was called, but the cameras and the big lenses and those light things. My stomach dropped. That was the bulk of my studio kit. The 2 backup bodies, 3 of my best lenses, my entire lighting rig, my calibrated monitor. I asked who she sold it to. She said some guy from an online marketplace. She'd posted it the day I left, and the guy came and picked it all up the next morning. I asked how much she got. She said $4,200. $4,200 for $38,000 worth of professional equipment. Equipment that I use to make a living. She sold it to some random dude for roughly 11 cents on the dollar because she needed to make a minimum payment on a credit card she'd maxed out buying candle subscriptions. I didn't yell. I'm actually kind of proud of that. My voice went very flat and very calm, which, if you knew me, is actually way scarier than yelling. I said, "I need the buyer's name, phone number, and the listing you posted. Screenshot everything. Do not delete anything. I will handle this when I get home." She started backpedaling immediately. "Babe, it's just stuff. We can replace it. I'll pay you back." I said, "You will not be paying me back because you don't have $38,000. Screenshot everything and send it to me. Now." She went quiet for a second and then said, You're being really aggressive right now, and I don't appreciate it. I hung up. She sent the screenshots 20 minutes later. The marketplace listing, the messages with the buyer, his profile. She'd listed everything as a bundle. Professional camera equipment, barely used, need gone ASAP. The ASAP was doing a lot of heavy lifting there. The buyer clearly knew he was getting a steal and jumped on it immediately. Here's what I did over the next 48 hours while I finished the shoot on autopilot. First, I called my insurance company. I have professional equipment insurance. Every working photographer does. I filed a claim and explained the situation. They told me that because the equipment was taken and sold by someone with access to my home, it would be processed as theft, and they strongly recommended I file a police report to support the claim. Noted. Second, I contacted the buyer through the marketplace. I was polite. I explained that the equipment was stolen property, that it was sold without the owner's consent, and that I'd be filing a police report. I told him I wanted to buy it back at what he paid and would appreciate his cooperation because the alternative was that the police would recover it as stolen goods and he'd get nothing. He was surprisingly cool about it. He said he'd had a feeling the deal was too good to be true. We arranged to meet the day I got back. Third, and this is the one that mattered, I called the non-emergency police line in my city and asked about the process for filing a theft report. The officer I spoke to walked me through it. The key detail, in my state, theft of property valued between $25,000 and $50,000 is a Class C felony. I asked what the potential sentence range was. He said up to 10 years, though realistically, for a first offense, it would likely be much less. But it would be a felony charge. A felony. On a record. Forever. I didn't feel good about that. I need to be honest here. I felt sick, actually, but I also felt sick about the fact that she'd sold the tools I used to feed myself for less than the price of a used Honda Civic, and then texted me about it like she'd donated old clothes to Goodwill. I finished the shoot, drove home, went straight to the buyer's place, and bought everything back for $4,200 cash. He'd kept it all in the cases, hadn't even opened most of it. I checked every piece. Everything was there and undamaged. I shook his hand and thanked him. Then I went home. She was sitting on the couch with this nervous energy, like she'd rehearsed a speech. She started with, "Before you say anything." I held up my hand. I said, "I recovered the equipment. I am filing a police report tomorrow morning. I need you to move out." The speech she'd rehearsed evaporated. She stared at me. "A police report? Are you serious right now? Over some cameras. Over $38,000 worth of equipment that you stole and sold without my knowledge or consent." "Yes. I didn't steal it. I live here. It was in our closet." "It's my closet in MY apartment, and it's my equipment that I purchased with documented receipts over 6 years. None of it is yours." She started crying. She said I was destroying her life over a mistake. She said she'd pay me back. She said she was under financial stress and wasn't thinking clearly. She said I was choosing stuff over our relationship. I told her the relationship was over regardless. I told her she had until the end of the week to move her things out. And I told her I was filing the report in the morning whether she was there or not. She called me every name you can think of. Then she called her mom. Update 1, 9 days later. Y'all, the audacity levels in this situation have exceeded anything I thought was possible. Let me catch you up. So the morning after our confrontation, I went to the police station and filed the report. Brought everything. Purchased receipts for every piece of equipment, the insurance policy, screenshots of her marketplace listing, the messages with the buyer, the text she sent me casually admitting she sold it, and a written statement from the buyer confirming the transaction. The officer taking the report actually paused when he saw the total value. He said, and I quote, "She sold $38,000 of equipment for $4,000? I said yes. He just slowly shook his head and kept typing. A detective was assigned the case within 2 days. He called me to go over the details. Super professional, asked thorough questions. He asked if my ex-girlfriend, had any claim to the equipment, any reason to believe it was shared property. I said no. He asked if she had any prior authorization to sell my belongings. I said absolutely not. He said the case was pretty straightforward given the text message admission alone. Now here's where the entitlement parade really kicked off. She did not move out by the end of the week. She simply didn't. When I came home Friday evening, she was still there, sitting in the living room, eating takeout sushi, watching Netflix on my TV like nothing had happened. I asked her what was going on. She said, "I talked to my mom, and she said you can't just kick me out. I have tenant rights." And here's the thing. She was technically correct. Even though she wasn't on the lease, she'd been living there long enough to establish residency. I couldn't just change the locks. I looked this up already. I need to go through a formal eviction process, which in my state takes a minimum of 30 days after written notice. So I handed her a written 30-day notice to vacate. Printed, dated, signed. She laughed at me. Actually laughed. She said, "You're serving me papers? Were you a lawyer now?" Then she took a picture of it and sent it to her group chat. I know because I heard her phone blowing up with responses for the next hour. Over the next few days, her behavior shifted. She went from apologetic to fully entitled. It was like watching someone's personality recalibrate in real time. Some highlights. She started eating my food, not just shared groceries, my meal prep. I'd open the fridge and entire containers of chicken and rice I'd made for the week would be gone. When I confronted her, she said, "I'm under financial stress because of your police report. The least you can do is feed me." She invited her mom over without telling me. I came home from editing at a coffee shop to find her mother sitting at my kitchen counter, arms crossed, waiting for me like a final boss. Her mom launched into a monologue about how I was criminalizing a domestic dispute and ruining a young woman's future over replaceable objects. I told her the objects were recovered, and the issue was the theft itself. Her mom said, "It's not theft if you're in a relationship. It's a disagreement about shared resources." I told her that was not how the law works. She called me vindictive. Then her mom pulled out what I can only describe as a negotiation attempt. She offered to write me a personal check for $4,200, the amount my ex got for the equipment, if I dropped the police report. I explained that once a report is filed, I don't get to just drop a felony investigation. That's not how it works. The DA decides whether to press charges. Her mom didn't believe me. She thought I was lying to avoid taking the deal. She said, "Everyone knows you can drop charges if you want to." I told her she was welcome to call the police department and ask them herself. She did not do that. Day 12 was when the detective called my ex in for questioning. I wasn't there obviously, but the detective followed up with me afterward. He said he'd explain the charges she was facing. Class C felony, potential sentence of up to 10 years, mandatory felony record. He said she became very emotional, and her demeanor changed significantly when she realized this wasn't a civil matter. Her mom called me that night. Different tone this time. Way different. She wasn't lecturing anymore. She was pleading. She said her daughter made a terrible mistake and that a felony would follow her forever. She asked if there was anything I could do. I told her, again, that the decision was out of my hands now. The DA's office would review the case and decide. Then her mom said something that genuinely made my jaw drop. She said, "Well, if you hadn't left your things lying around where she could access them, this never would have happened." My things. Lying around. In my own closet. In my own apartment. I told her mom this conversation was over and that any further communication should go through the detective. She hung up. 3 days after the detective interview, I got served with a surprise. My ex had gone to legal aid and filed for a temporary protective order against me. The claim? Emotional abuse and coercive control via the police report and eviction notice. She was arguing that I was using the legal system to harass and control her. My stomach dropped when I saw the paperwork. This is the part they don't tell you about, guys. When someone files one of those, it gets taken seriously by default. The hearing was set for 2 weeks out. In the meantime, the order wasn't granted. The judge reviewed the initial filing and denied the emergency/temporary order because there was no allegation of physical violence or imminent threat. But the hearing was still happening. I immediately called a lawyer. Cost me $3,500 retainer just to walk in the door. That hurt. But I brought him everything, the entire paper trail. He reviewed it in about 20 minutes and said, "This is going to be dismissed, but you need to show up and you need me there." So yeah, I was now spending money on a lawyer because my ex stole my property, got caught, and decided the best defense was to claim I was abusing her by reporting the crime. The math on this was starting to make me furious. But here's what gave me some peace of mind. The detective told me, off the record, that the DA was very likely to file charges. The evidence was overwhelming. She'd literally texted me a confession. The marketplace listing was in her name. The buyer had given a statement. My equipment receipts and insurance documentation were ironclad. He said the protective order filing actually didn't look great for her because it appeared retaliatory. Follower count on her entitlement? Off the charts. But the legal system was about to do its thing. Update 2. 16 days later. This is the last update. It's been a ride, and I need to be done talking about this publicly for legal reasons my attorney has strongly recommended I respect. But I owe y'all an ending. The protective order hearing came first. My attorney showed up with a file that was, no exaggeration, about 2 inches thick. Printed timeline. Every text message. Every screenshot. The police report. The detective's notes. My lease showing I was the sole tenant. Receipts for the equipment. Her marketplace listing. The buyer's statement. Her mother's Venmo of the $4,200 she tried to send me as a settlement after the police report was filed, which my attorney pointed out could be interpreted as consciousness of guilt. Wait, I didn't mention the Venmo? Yeah. After the phone call where I told her mom to stop contacting me, her mom sent $4,200 to my Venmo with the note, full restitution for the misunderstanding. I declined it immediately on my lawyer's advice. He said accepting money could complicate the criminal case. But the fact that it existed with that note was useful. Her legal aid attorney argued that the police report and eviction were part of a pattern of coercive control. My attorney presented the actual pattern. She stole property, sold it, admitted it via text, and then filed the protective order 12 days after a detective informed her she was facing a felony. The timeline spoke for itself. The judge dismissed the protective order. Not just denied, dismissed. He made a comment from the bench that I'm going to remember for a very long time. He said the court takes protective orders extremely seriously and that filing one as a tactical response to legitimate legal proceedings undermined the system for people who genuinely need protection. He didn't sanction her, but the tone made it clear he considered it. My ex was sitting across the courtroom. She didn't look at me the entire time. Her mom was in the gallery, crying quietly. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Now the criminal case. The DA filed charges. 1 count, Class C felony theft. My attorney walked me through what would likely happen. The DA would offer a plea deal before it ever went to trial because the evidence was so clear-cut and trials are expensive. He was right. About a week after the protective order was dismissed, my ex's public defender reached out to my attorney asking if I'd be willing to provide a victim impact statement supporting leniency. My attorney asked me what I wanted to do. I thought about it for 2 days. This is the part where I have to be real with you all. A felony conviction would wreck her life. Career-wise, housing-wise, everything. She wouldn't be able to work in retail management. Most companies run background checks. She'd have trouble renting apartments. It would follow her for years, possibly forever, depending on the state's expungement laws. And despite everything, the theft, the entitlement, the protective order stunt, her mother's insanity, she was still someone I'd shared 1.5 years of my life with. Someone I'd cared about. But then I thought about what she'd actually done. She didn't make a mistake. She waited until I was out of town. She listed the equipment the same day I left. She had a buyer lined up within hours. She negotiated a price. She let a stranger into my apartment to take my property. She cashed the payment, and then she texted me about it like she'd rearranged the furniture. That's not a mistake. That's a plan. And when she got caught, she didn't take responsibility. She claimed tenant rights. She ate my food. She sent her mother to negotiate. She filed a retaliatory protective order, trying to paint me as the abuser. At every single step, she chose escalation over accountability. I told my attorney I would not provide a statement supporting leniency. I wouldn't provide a statement at all. I let the legal system do whatever the legal system does. The plea deal came through about a week later. Her public defender negotiated it down. She pled guilty to a reduced charge, Class D felony, which in my state carries up to 5 years. Her actual sentence: 3 years of probation, mandatory restitution of $4,200, the amount she received from the sale, since I'd already recovered the equipment, 200 hours of community service, and a felony on her record. A felony on her record. She could potentially apply for expungement after completing probation. My attorney said that was typical for first offenses, but until then, and possibly after depending on the judge, it's there. Her mom sent me one final message after the sentencing. It wasn't angry this time. It was just sad. She said, "I hope this was worth it to you. You've taken her future." I didn't respond. But I'll say here what I would have said to her if I was a less careful person. I didn't take anything. Her daughter took something, and then she spent 6 weeks doubling and tripling down instead of ever. Once just saying, "I was wrong and I'm sorry, and I'll accept whatever comes." That's it. That's what kills me about the whole thing. At any point, if she'd shown genuine accountability, I might have handled it differently. If she'd said, "I messed up, this is indefensible. What can I do to make it right?" on that very first phone call, I honestly don't know if I would have filed a report. Maybe I would have. Maybe not. I'll never know because she never gave me that option. Instead, she gave me tenant rights arguments, mama bear negotiations, the protective order play, and an endless stream of "this is your fault for leaving your stuff where I could find it." For anyone wondering about the practical aftermath, the 30-day eviction notice expired while the criminal case was being processed. She moved out on day 28, took her stuff, and left her key on the counter. She didn't damage anything, which honestly surprised me. Her mom came with a minivan, and they were gone in about 3 hours. I changed the locks that evening, sat on my couch in my quiet apartment with all my equipment back in the closet where it belongs, and I just sat there for a while. Didn't feel victorious. Didn't feel sad exactly. Just felt the weight of it. My buddy came over that night with a six-pack, and we watched basketball, and he didn't ask me about any of it, and I was grateful for that. I got a product shoot next week for a skincare brand. Decent contract. My insurance claim was withdrawn since I recovered the equipment, so my premiums didn't go up. My lawyer bill came to just under $6,000 when all was said and done. That's money I'll never get back, and it makes me clench my jaw thinking about it. But I'm working. My gear is intact. My record is clean. The $4,200 in restitution, it'll come in monthly installments as part of her probation. I'll probably get about $120 per month for the next 3 years. I didn't ask for it. The court ordered it. I'll take it. It won't cover the lawyer, but it'll cover something. I don't check her social media. I don't ask mutual friends about her. I deleted our old photos last week. Not in some dramatic ceremonial way. Just sitting on the couch on a Tuesday night, clearing storage on my phone. It took about 4 minutes. A couple people have asked me if I feel guilty. I've been thinking about that honestly. The answer is, I feel guilty that I don't feel guilty. If that makes sense. Like, I know a part of me probably should feel worse about the felony thing. She's 28 with a felony record, and that's going to be a shadow on her life for a long time. But every time I start to feel bad, I picture her letting a stranger into my apartment to haul out the equipment I spent 6 years building while I was 4 states away trusting her. And then I don't feel so bad anymore. Last thing, I've been asked what I'd do differently. Honestly, I'd have set up a camera in my office. Not because I expected this, but because I'm a photographer and I own cameras, and it would have made the case even more airtight. But I never in a million years thought I'd need to protect my belongings from the person sleeping next to me. Lesson learned, I guess. That's it. Thanks for reading all of this. Turning off notifications on this account now. Go protect your stuff, people. Seriously.